New Zealand football are in need of a new coach for the All Whites after the sudden departure of national men's team coach Fritz Schmid. In the role for just 16 months, Schmid has today confirmed in a statement he is returning home to Switzerland following careful reflection of my private and professional situation. Joining me now to discuss the news and look at what else is going on in the sporting world is Clay Wilson. Hi, Clay.
Kia ora, Lisa.
So, is this out of the blue, really, and what's behind it?
Yeah, it is a little bit. There wasn't any indication that he was going to leave, and we don't really know specifically why he is. We do know that the All Whites have only played 4 games in the 16 months he's been on board, so perhaps that is a factor. We also have reports today that he had a slightly strained relationship with the interim technical director of New Zealand football, who's Andy Boyens. I asked CEO Andrew Pragnell about that. He didn't speak specifically to that, but he did say that the feedback he'd had about Schmidt and around the football community was largely positive. So we don't really know exactly why. I guess the reasons may come out in the wash. Schmidt hasn't spoken himself, so let's see if he does eventually speak, or maybe the details will eventually come out.
So we don't know if he's got some flash other job yet?
No, it just sounds like he's going back to Switzerland, but I guess, things may change on that front.
So what happens now then, and are there any obvious sitters to take over from him?
Well, there is one, and it's one that people will know well. Denny Hayes, a former All White himself, was a striker. He's one of only about half a dozen players from New Zealand to play in the English Premier League, which is, of course, is one of the biggest leagues in the world. He's now coaching Eastern Suburbs, and they won the National League title in this recent season and have really done really well to do that, come from sort of somewhere where they weren't really expected to win the national title. He's already expressed an interest in the job. He's been endorsed by Winton Rufer, our greatest ever footballer. So let's see. Andrew Pragnell, the boss of New Zealand football, said to me they're not going to put a nationality bias on the job. So I guess that gives Hay a chance, because in the past, and sometimes in the past, some conditions have ruled New Zealand coaches out. So we might see. We haven't had a New Zealand coach of the All Whites since 2013, since Ricky Herbert left the job. So he would seem a good fit, but whether he gets the job or not, we'll see. About 8 to 12 weeks, I think they're looking for the period to replace Fritz Schmid.
Shall we move to the oval ball now? And International Rugby League double header in Auckland tomorrow. What are you expecting?
Lots of red, probably, with Tonga involved, and we've seen what their fans have done in support of their team, the song and the noise and the flag waving. So the Kiwis are going to play Tonga. Before that, we have the Kiwi Ferns, the women's team, against Samoa. They've got a new head coach, so they'll be looking to get his tenure underway well. But looking at the Kiwis, the story this week's really been about Benji Marshall and Benji's comeback into the black jersey, 7 years away, so a lot of focus on him, and he's been really emotional about it, and spoke to him early in the week, and just really grateful and happy to be back. So I think it's been a really feel-good story for the Kiwis, that one.
Pretty grim weather forecast though, isn't it, for tomorrow? I think it is.
Yeah, well, it's been a grim all week.
It has. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Super Rugby playoffs starting on the weekend too. 4 teams from New Zealand in the mix. How many of them are going to come out trumps?
Well, 3 at best, because the Crusaders play the Highlanders tonight. The Crusaders, a stacked team, I think more than half a dozen All Blacks in their starting side. So you would expect them to beat the Highlanders, that game in Christchurch tonight. Early tomorrow morning, we've got the Chiefs in Buenos Aires. They're against the Jaguares, the Argentinian team. They actually won in Buenos Aires, the Chiefs, and they're probably arguably the form team of them coming into the playoffs despite their poor start. So you'd expect them to win. And then the Hurricanes against the Bulls tomorrow night in Wellington. The Bulls have arrived 24 hours late into Wellington. Joe Porter, our colleague down in Wellington, informs me. So that's going to make it really tough coming all the way from South Africa. You expect the Hurricanes to win. And then the other game not involving New Zealand team is the Brumbies against the Sharks. You expect the Brumbies to win that at home, which would mean the Chiefs head to Canberra for their semi-final.
We're running out of time, but I'm really curious about Israel Folau and developments with his case. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, he's obviously taking legal proceedings against his contract being torn up with Rugby Australia, and he set up a GoFundMe page to fund his legal battle, which he expects might go to the High Court. Obviously a very costly exercise to go through that, and lengthy. He's asking for $3 million. Now, this page has been up for less than 2 days. I checked before I came into the studio here. It's now more than $300,000 raised, so 10% of $3 million raised in just 2 days. So it looks like he's going to reach his target, but it's a wafty number, and also for someone who
it's on a high priced contract.
So it does raise some questions. But I mean, he's obviously got a lot of support as much as a lot of questions out there. So definitely interesting. We'll see how that one moves forward. I think next week they go into conciliation with Rugby Australia, Folau and his legal team.
Interesting. Hey, Cricket World Cup's keeping people in my house up late at night and early in the morning. Black Caps on the verge of booking a semi-final spot.
Yeah, so they play the West Indies overnight tomorrow night. If they win that game, they're all but in the semi-finals.
Where's your money, Clay? Come on.
Well, I guess you never want to guarantee things too much. And the Cricket World Cup this tournament is a tournament where they could just as likely lose to the West Indies, who have lost 3 of their 4 games so far. So let's see. But form would suggest
hedging your bets.
Form would suggest they win. I'm definitely backing the Black Caps in this one, and then that gives them a bit of a buffer. I think 3 games before the semi-finals to perhaps tinker a little bit and try and find some form to hit the semi-finals running.
Wow. And with all that on the weekend, you'll be having a lot of couch time, Clay. There
Exactly.
you go. That is Clay Wilson with a wrap of everything that's, basically going on in sport this weekend.